Sure thing. Well, thanks, Ben. We're excited to be here today. I don't know if any of you have seen in the last couple of days, there's been a lot of talk about sales tax, given the updates to the laws in California and Colorado. And so I kind of compare this to, when I'm trying to buy a car, let's say I want to buy a red truck, I start to see a red truck everywhere. It's funny that we're talking about sales tax today. The last 2 days, I feel like I've seen sales tax everywhere. There's just a lot of traffic around that. And that's because it's constantly growing. So excited to present today and talk a little bit about, how we're helping customers on the TaxCloud side. And yeah, I can jump right into it here. So my name's Connor. If my design team helped me make this slide, I would have made my face a little smaller here. But as Ben mentioned, I am a practitioner, right? So I'm a CPA. I have my master's in tax. And my first internship was at KPMG, and my internship was on sales tax and indirect tax. And so I kind of from day one learned about the complexities. And at the time, this was the beginning of kind of the Wayfair law that came out of the Supreme Court, which said, hey, we're looking at these digital businesses that are selling products online, or in the case of SaaS, selling digital products where, you can buy them anywhere in the world. I think we need to look at how we tax those things. And that decision that came out in 2018 has revolutionized sales tax. Now, you pretty much have to pay sales tax on everything, both products and services, and everywhere, whether it's a physical place or a digital presence, e-commerce, anything like that. So while the name of this presentation is sales tax for growing SaaS, this applies to all growing businesses, and no matter what you're selling, thanks to those law changes and how aggressive states are getting with their taxation. But yeah, so what we'll do today is we'll just talk about the issues with sales tax. I know that the people in this presentation know about sales tax. They know that it's part of the financials, it's part of everything. But we'll kind of talk about, how do we kind of take that risk and problem and automate it? How do we automate this compliance piece? We'll kind of talk about, where the compliance software has gone from completely manual 3 decades ago, legacy players to now. We're kind of seeing that with all finance tools, whether it's ERPs, billing softwares. We're seeing that with compliance softwares now too. And then, as been mentioned, I definitely want to answer questions at the end. As both somewhat of a tax expert, I wouldn't put myself on that level, but a user of these softwares, right? I've been a user of our competitors, and then I'm here at the controller at TaxCloud, and I'm using TaxCloud to run our sales tax compliance. So happy to dive in here.
Yeah, sounds good. And okay. I know, we have a couple states joining the bandwagon there. So this is really interesting. Definitely on the forefront.
For sure. All right, so let's talk about the real problem. So as we know, as I mentioned, that sales tax is kind of applicable to everything you're selling. So if you're selling software as a service and you're selling it out of, let's say I'm in Utah and I'm selling to somebody, to a company that's based in North Carolina, you didn't have to worry about that 2 decades ago. Now I do. I have to worry about collecting and remitting sales tax on behalf of that customer. And I got to collect at the right rate. I got to collect at the right time. I got to file at the right time, et cetera. I think one of the issues that I mentioned was we kind of, as practitioners, as finance, accounting, CPAs, et cetera, we know that this is part of the game, right? And I think what's happened to me in the past is I've gotten all of my systems dialed in. Maybe I just joined a company, or the company is growing, and we're dialing in all our systems, right? We've got our ERP running well. We've got our billing system running well. Maybe got some controls in place. And then we kind of think, oh, wait, yeah, sales tax. And maybe we kind of push it off, right? And say, I'm not going to worry about it right now. Or, yeah, we're probably not taxable. Or I know there's so many other things that need money in the company right now. This is the least of my concern. So there's kind of what I call the immaterial trap, is we just kind of say it's immaterial. It's immaterial to the operations. it's immaterial to the financials, right? The actual sales tax liability that goes on the financials. I'm just going to push it for later. And the issue with that is what's great is the company keeps growing, but as we do more sales and sell in more cities and towns and states, that immaterial part of the business becomes material, and it could be from quarter to quarter. And the reason that happens is because with these new laws, you now can have nexus, which is a fancy word for responsibility in states to file as your company grows, and you don't even know it, right? Every state has a different, what they call nexus threshold. And that nexus used to just be, do you have a physical office here? Do you have employees here? Now it's, do you have enough economic presence? Do you have enough sales going on in our state? Some states it's 50,000, some states it's 500,000. And depending on the day, it changes. So nexus is nuanced, right? What states I have to file and remit in changes depending on how my business is growing, but also the laws that are happening in the country. We just mentioned California here on point number 3 here. As of January 1st, right? California, this used to be the one state we didn't have to worry about with SaaS. Well, starting on 2027, we do have to worry about it in Colorado. And guess what? If I'm a state who needs money, I'm looking at California and Colorado and saying, yep, I think I want to charge sales tax on SaaS too. So yeah, that's the issue is it's constantly changing within your own business, but it's also changing within the different states. And so that's why it's tough. The materiality becomes a problem because it's hard to know where you're at with your compliance.
And Connor, do you think California, I mean, obviously a big state, a lot of software companies located in California. I mean, do you think the states that are not taxing software, I mean, is that going to get the attention? Do you think this will just be a cascading effect and it'll just be, go state to state?
Potentially. And the reason I think that is because states are unlike the federal government. They actually have to balance their budgets, or they should try, right? So here in Utah, for example, it is illegal, according to Utah Constitution, to go into a deficit. Now, obviously, things happen, but the idea here is states have to stay within budget. And so they're much more aggressive about revenue. And so sales tax and all types of taxes are much more heavily enforced by those revenue departments than, say, the federal government that is definitely allowed to go into a deficit, as we know. So I think that as cities grow and have more services, they're always looking for new revenue streams. And what's nice about sales tax is it's a way to kind of collect the tax you're already due and push it on businesses rather than citizens. And so I can see if California and Colorado do this, it's kind of a signal that, hey, I didn't even know we could generate a new revenue stream here. And so, yeah, I could definitely see that growing.
Yeah. Appreciate the insight. And who knows, anyone's guess, but it'll be interesting to see after this what happens.
Yeah. So those compounding costs, right? Those issues, when it becomes material to the business, I see 3 things here. And I was reading up on some comments yesterday on Ben's post on LinkedIn about this presentation. A lot of people mentioned the due diligence risk. And I do think that that's a pretty significant risk. And what that basically means is a lot of companies are preparing for M&A, maybe a few years down the road, maybe a few months from now. And when the due diligence team comes in to try and haircut your valuation as much as possible, they're going to be looking for unrecorded liabilities. They're going to be looking for risks in the company that could lower the valuation of the company. And one of those that's often found is tax liabilities, including sales tax, which can be a pretty significant haircut to some degree. If you've got hundreds of thousands or even millions of penalties, interest, payments that you haven't made that diligence finds, they will include that in kind of that due diligence report and try to haircut that valuation. So I think that's pretty significant. That's a big risk. But then there also comes, if you have a financial audit, if those liabilities aren't showing on your balance sheet, the auditors are going to bring that up. And then most obvious is the cash flow hit. If it comes to the point where you do end up having to remit sales tax and you haven't collected from your customers, I don't know if any of us would suggest going back in time and saying, hey, customer, we forgot to collect your sales tax. Would you mind sending it to us now, right? So we will probably end up backfiling and registering and then just paying that out of the business funds. And that's 7 to 8% of sales. Doing 50 million in sales a year, like it's a pretty significant cash flow hit that we didn't collect for.
Yeah, and that's a big one for founders. And I have a couple clients going through this process right now. And yeah, they're going to write checks, and depending on your cash balance, you could be fine, or that could be a problem. So yeah, it's a big deal.
Certainly. So what I kind of, when I was talking with the team about this presentation, is I mentioned that we generally know this in the finance side, and whether or not we think it's material, the hard part usually is not, it's not us. It's getting everyone else on board. It's getting, budget for it. It's getting the time, all these things. So we kind of had this slide as a, hey, here's a screenshot, send this to your CEO if you're having issues in terms of getting a tool. I'll leave it up here for a bit, but I think the biggest idea here is we just want to make sure that we're operating the company correctly as finance professionals, but we also want to make sure we're complying with everything we need to. And we don't want to put any roadblocks if we have an audit, or we have an investor, or we have future M&A activity. And one thing we can do today to eliminate any roadblocks is figure out some of our compliance issues, which brings up sales tax. And right now is a great time to talk about that because it's in the news right now, and it's hitting all businesses, especially SaaS. So what's great about this is there are great automated solutions out there. And so I've been in that seat before where, oh boy, we're selling all over the place. I know there's an issue. I need to go look for a company that's going to help me with all this sales tax. I'm not necessarily looking for a software. I don't want to just go online and pick the cheapest software I can find and then sign up and then just start using it and filing it on myself. Like, I want someone to help me with, how do I get registered? What if I haven't filed in states before? Do I have to pay back taxes? Do I not? What if I got a bunch of letters from a different state? So what I was looking for when I was evaluating sales tax tools was I wanted to actually find like a team that could help me, but I also needed it to be integrated with my systems and automated and everything like that. So I was looking for more of a partner rather than a software. And I'm happy to talk about kind of how that partnership has changed over the years. And so what that's looked like, say 2 or 3 decades ago, and I feel like this is every software right now. We used to do everything in-house, very manual. You think about ERPs, you think about billing systems, you think about sales tax, you would maybe have a spreadsheet that had everything on it, and then you're just doing a lot of data entry. Maybe you're hiring an accounting firm to do all this data entry for you. You're having to constantly update your address to your customers. You're giving them lots of information. Then that grew into kind of the legacy tools. We've kind of put on here Avalara and TaxJar. These are kind of popular tools, and just like when NetSuite came on the scene with ERPs, when some legacy billing came on the scenes, they kind of took a lot of that data entry and somewhat automated it. The issue is, and we've seen this with some of these bigger players, is very expensive and it takes a long time to implement, and they're very hard to reach support. These companies become very big, and as part of that, their support is not as hands-on. And so with these legacy players, you're kind of going to market to find a solution for sales tax, and you're being told, all right, great, it's going to take 6 months to implement, and it's going to cost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. And good luck reaching out to any support. You might actually have to have an admin at your company run this software for you, or have a consulting company help you with this software. Like, I know that's been the case with other legacy tools. So now comes the modern providers, right? We've heard terms like AI native, AI finance stack. Like, this is happening with all tools. And it's this combination of that structure of legacy with a modern, more integrated approach. So what we try to do at TaxCloud is create a modern solution for sales tax compliance that combines automation with human hands-on service. And an ever increasing AI offering from companies, I think people are still asking for human support. They don't want to be just pushed off to some AI bot or trust things like this to AI. And so this is what I kind of want to talk about today with TaxCloud and how we're able to automate sales tax compliance, given that it's very hard to automate, right? It's a very old process of filing with states and remitting and such like that.
Yeah, definitely. And Connor, Nicholas commented he took a screenshot. He loved the that screenshot to send to your CEO or board or wherever. And Nicholas is a CFO.
Nice.
So yeah, so if you guys, we'll come back to that if you do need to, because we know as finance controller CFOs, we know we have to do this. Sometimes we do have to get approved, and I even have founders voluntarily wanting to do this. So there is some momentum here. So if you do want that slide again, just let us know. And then Daniel put in a historical note here, Connor. He said, way back in 79-80, the company VisiCorp, the marketers of the first spreadsheet, went to the California State Board of Equalization that said the software is not should not be taxed. So that lasted 45 years. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, those are great comments. And that reminds me too of when I was, really studying the Wayfair decision. What was interesting is one of the pushbacks was similar to that. They said it's going to be really hard for customers to figure out thousands of different tax rates and file in all these different places. And the Supreme Court basically said, that's too bad. We think that the way software is moving, someone will figure it out. And so it kind of is a idea of, even if it sounds impossible, the government's going to find a way, and that way as well. Tools are getting better, and so good luck. Yeah. And luckily, tools have gotten better, and that's what we'll talk about today with TaxCloud. But
yeah, and this is a great comment from Laura. She said, I recently had my mind blown when I learned that in some states, attending or exhibiting at a conference, convention, or trade show can create a physical presence nexus, including Illinois, New Jersey, Texas, and California. So yeah, who knows? Each state is different.
Wild. Yeah, every state's different. It's a can of worms, as I describe it. And so what's nice is, how do we automate that can of worms? And I'll kind of talk about how TaxCloud has become kind of a partner, like I mentioned, not just a software. Obviously, there's software running in the background and to do all these things. But the first thing we talk about is, and I'll kind of go to this slide. So all those sales tax risks, right? All of the comments we've heard, everything, we want it handled and automated. And so I'm going to talk about how TaxCloud does that. So the first thing is, we talked about, all right, let's say we have the issue, we know it's an issue, we send that screenshot to our founder, and everybody's in on, okay, let's get our sales tax figured out. What's usually going to happen is, the old way would be, hiring a firm, and they're going to ask you for a bunch of documentation, and they're going to try to figure out all this stuff. Essentially, what we will do on the TaxCloud side is, the first thing you're going to access with the TaxCloud is a human being onboarding team that's going to walk you through and answer some of those questions on, okay, I've got these 17 states that I haven't registered in. What do I do? Do I voluntarily disclose that I haven't filed? We call that like a VDA. Do I ignore it? Do I pay those back taxes? The answer is my favorite tax answer. It depends, right? But what's nice is, you'll have a team that will walk you through the answers to that. And I did this when before my time at TaxCloud. We had about 12 states that we hadn't paid a dime in, and we had gotten letters and everything like that. We kind of put those letters off to the side, and basically said, okay, of these 12 states, what should we do? And this is what TaxCloud is providing. Now, some of those other providers, the answer was you got to hire a tax attorney or whatever and figure this out. At TaxCloud, we're going to help you through those answers. We're going to help you say, yeah, in this state's really aggressive with VDAs, voluntary disclosures. You should pay your back taxes here. Or this state's really good about, hey, sorry, I haven't paid anything. I'm going to start paying today. This state, just file and remit, and we'll see if they ask. They usually don't, right? It's kind of different. So getting on board is a process of, what do I do about my tax situation in the past? Human team will help you through all that. And then now, how do I actually connect my systems so that from here on out, I'm collecting and remitting correctly? So what we do is we actually connect to your billing system. And we can do that, if you're using a typical billing system like Stripe or ChargeBee, or you're billing through QuickBooks or anything like that, we can actually plug directly into those billing systems. And what that will do is it will give us the addresses we need. It'll give us the sales data we need to come up with, here's where you need to collect and remit. We also have custom APIs. So whatever you're using, our team can figure out how to connect with your system. So right there, we have some automation built in of, once it's set up, I can kind of set it and forget it. Now my system is collecting and remitting on its own. The next step that's happening is, now that we have that data from your billing system, and we've kind of gone through that onboarding process of what do we do about filing in the past, we're now tracking that nexus or that responsibility with each of these states. So Ben, some of the commenters mentioned, in these different states, Alaska, Georgia, Arkansas, I may not have enough connection with those states because I don't have any sales there, or I don't have a physical presence. TaxCloud is going to know that, and it's going to say, collect 0 on these invoices. Don't worry about it. And one important thing I forgot to mention is, when we connect to your billing system, the tax rates and everything get applied directly to those invoices. So let's say you're using Stripe. Stripe has its own internal tax engine. TaxCloud works with that tax engine, but ChargeBee, for example, does not. And so TaxCloud actually has its own TaxCloud engine, or has its own tax engine that will put on that invoice how much sales tax that person needs to pay, so that you're collecting the right amount. Then it's tracking all of your nexus, and then we'll go into the next step here. But did you have a comment there, Ben?
Yeah, kind of just quick question, comment. Nicholas had a comment here, which is very relevant. And one thing, even if this is a good point to walk away with today, and Nicholas said we are currently billing with Stripe, moving to Rillet, and the issue I'm running into when trying to understand my nexus is we do not collect address information currently. And I've seen that also with my clients where we're using Stripe, and hey, I just wanted that credit card. I want an email, maybe a name, and that's it. And then we go to run this process, and boy, yep, we don't have addresses. Do you see that when with onboarding?
I have seen that, yeah. And I think that obviously as part of that, we have to have an address, right? And so I think that what happens is the team will help, you get all that figured out. Because I have seen that before, where the customer just pays with credit card and they're able to kind of bypass that address point. But again, I'm sure we've had customers in that same situation. So what's nice, some background on TaxCloud, is our original ideal customer was smaller Shopify e-commerce customers. So we've been through that friction of helping people with absolutely no finance background help get set up on sales tax. And so I'm sure we've dealt with some of the most complex onboardings that you can come into, because we've worked with such small, less prepared customers. I think with SaaS and everything, we're going to handle it the same way.
And we've got quite a few, actually, just a burst of questions here. So I don't know if you want to take a few now or wait till the end if you have a few more slides to get through. But we have some questions coming through here.
I can take a few now. My last slide is just talking about how we take all that data and then file for you. but happy to answer some questions.
Yeah,
now.
why don't we keep rolling here, and then we'll take a break and
Sure.
answer some of these questions. So yeah, this is the perfect time to, and some good questions coming in. So yeah, post those questions and we'll take those in a sec.
Okay. Yep. So we're gathering all that data, address data, tax rates, everything. And then we actually have a human team that's helping file all those reports. Obviously, we have technology built in TaxCloud that helps us do that more efficiently. But if you think about the filing piece is kind of the important part of automating this compliance. The calculation's happening on the invoice side, but now we actually have to take those dollars and give them to the states. And as you know, if you've ever logged into a state website, some of them are very archaic, right? And we've learned, we have a lot of ex-Department of Revenue employees on our team here at TaxCloud. We have a lot of like sales tax experts who have helped us figure out very sophisticated ways of filing these returns accurately. And that's what's most important. That's how we avoid you getting a letter from a state, is filing these things on time and accurately. And so in some states, we actually have a relationship with them through the SST program, where we can actually collect and file and remit those taxes seamlessly to kind of one organization. And there are some savings that come on your end as a customer. We actually file in those states for free, and we pass those savings on to you. And then the states that are a little more complex and not part of this SST, we've learned how to actually get on those websites and make sure everything's filed correctly. We have great relationships with all these states. So this is the most important part, is if I think about my risk that we've talked about of all these sales taxes I haven't collected or didn't know I should collect it, those with TaxCloud are handled and automated, right? The onboarding piece helps you know, okay, where do I need to file? What do I need to do? We get all that worked out. Then we get it hooked up to your revenue system, your billing system, so that it's collecting. And then we're remitting for you on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis, depending on what you need to do. The ideal situation is now sales tax just isn't on your mind. It's just happening in the background. And maybe you hear from our customer success team, every once in a while to make sure you're doing okay. But hopefully the idea is you never have to hear from a state again. You never have to worry about it. It's completely automated and handled in the background. Like that's our approach to this modern approach of sales tax. To end here, we've got a couple QR codes. The first is a Stripe walkthrough. I know Stripe is kind of the most popular billing platform for SaaS, but as I said, we plug into anything through custom API, and then we do have some direct integrations with other tools. But there's this QR code here to kind of show you what TaxCloud looks like using Stripe as an example, how it uses Stripe's tax engine to collect, remit, maybe just some of those address issues, and then how TaxCloud uses that data to file and remit on your behalf to make sure that you're compliant. And then, if you're kind of in that situation of, hey, I need to get my taxes figured out, maybe I just want to have a call and get some advice on some of these voluntary disclosure or anything like that, we've got a QR code here to schedule a call with our team to go more in depth with your business. But yeah, that's all I have for today. So I'm really happy to dive into the Q&A and answer what I can.